Okay, I believe we are live. Hi, everyone. I see a lot of people joining in. Hi, Ashwani. Hi, Navneet. Hi, Devendra. Good morning. Oh, I see someone joining in us from Pune. Brilliant, brilliant. Hi, Lalit. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in. I think we'll give everyone maybe 30 seconds or another minute for everyone else to join in before we start with the discussion. And then we'll go ahead with the session. Hey, Ranganathan. Good morning. Hey Yogin, thank you. I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well as well. Gentlemen, out of curiosity, which are the organizations that y'all are joining from? If you can put that down, that would be. I'm just very curious to know which are the organizations that are joining us on this chat today. Hey, hi Animesh. Yeah, it's raining a lot. I think Bangalore folks are probably just at home, tuning into the session. So that's great. Oh, I see a lot of students joining in as well. CS Business School, Mumbai, Del Monte, brilliant. Whole Truth Foods, wow, lovely. Dabur joining in as well. Consultants. Oh, Yogin says Bizom came for campus hiring yesterday. Interesting, Yogin. I'd love to know how things went down, but maybe we can connect post the session. Universal Remedies. Great. I see a lot of very interesting organizations and a very diverse field of audience sort of joining in. I believe now is a good time to get started with this session. Now that we've given everyone perhaps a couple of minutes to join in, I think we can start the session. Okay, brilliant. Then let's start the session. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining in. I understand, taking time out of your busy schedule to join into this session. Middle of the week, probably you've got a lot of other things planned to do, but here you are to learn a little bit. Irrespective of what walks of life you come from, whether you're a student, whether you're a business professional in the FMCG industry, wanting to sort of learn the trade, thank you so much for joining in. I sort of hope that not only are you taking away very, very key insights from this whole discussion, which I know for a fact you will do, but you also enjoy this conversation because the gentlemen that we have coming on the panel today are some of not just the smartest people I know, but some of the coolest people I know as well, right? These gentlemen are great people to have a coffee with and a beer with. So that's a little bit about that. Let me go ahead and take things forward. Let me introduce myself. I am Varun Nair, currently serving as the Enterprise Growth Manager here at Bizom. I drive go-to-market strategies for your hyper enterprise conglomerates across the globe, helping them solve sales and distribution-based challenges by leveraging technology better to do so, right? That is largely what I do on a day-to-day basis. If a lot of you are prospects, it's very likely that we've probably engaged in the recent past. So that's a little bit about myself. I will be your host for today. Really looking forward to the conversation. Now, before we get started, let me sort of brief you on an overview of how the sessions are going to be done, right? In order to achieve the best outcomes possible from this webinar, we've sort of broken the whole session down into three large functions, right? And I'll sort of give you a time view as well of how long these sessions are going to last so that you have an intrinsic understanding of how these sections are going to work. So your first session is going to be a panel discussion. It's going to be, the main stuff, right? Why all of you have tuned in, the superstars are going to tune in, be a part of the panel. And we're going to discuss how can you go from just shelf space to dominating the market using this whole go wide, go deep approach. What is this approach? What is it that it is in relevance to the FMCG industry we're going to learn? What are some of the insights that you can carry out? We have folks from VIP, Imami Agrotech, UBL, Parley Agro. They're sort of going to walk us through how they manage to increase sale, increase customer loyalty in these organizations. Strategies to expand distribution channels on long-term success is another thing that we're probably going to talk about in a little bit more detail. So that is another insight that you can take home. How do you adapt to both the urban markets as well as the rural market is another function that we're going to be spending some time on understanding in some more detail. And obviously the overarching outcome of this whole discussion: how is data and technology going to help you drive growth very efficiently? So these are some of the outcomes that I hope you sort of carry out of this discussion. This whole first session is going to be about 40 minutes long, give or take, and we will move on to the second session. Now, the second session is one of my favorite, right? This is a chance for you to get up close and personal with our guests. Fire away your very, very fiery questions at the guests. Put them on the spotlight. They're used to putting their subordinates in the spotlight when they were in the industry. Now it's your chance to put them at the spotlight. And we're going to take up questions from the audience sitting here. Do sort of write in your questions, irrespective of which channel you're joining from. I know some of you are probably joining in from YouTube, some of you from LinkedIn. So fire away, and we'll make it a point to sort of take up all your questions. And the last session, right? Now you understood what is this whole go wide, go deep approach, and you want to sort of understand what does it mean in terms of business implication. What does it mean in terms of help that you can get from Bizom in this whole go wide, go deep approach? If that sort of keeps you curious post this discussion, I would say, first of all, good job done for the session, because that is the purpose of the session. But then we're going to break into a 15-minute long session where we're sort of going to give you a demo of the solution that is going to help you go wide and go deep in your business. The link will be shared for everyone that is interested. Please join in and sort of have a look. With that, let's move on to the most important sort of 2 minutes of the session, where I introduce to you our esteemed panel for the day. The first man is Mr. Savant Kumar, AGM IT, currently at VIP Industries. Savant boasts of over 12 years of experience in digital transformation for top organizations like Coca-Cola, Adani Wilmar, Imami Agrotech, and his current capacity in VIP Industries. Savan and his team were absolutely pivotal in digitally transforming VIP's whole route to market to reduce and optimize distributional spends, not just in the urban landscape, but much more importantly in the rural landscape as well. Savan, thank you so much for joining in, and we really look forward to the chat.
Yeah, Varun. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome,
Looking
Savan.
forward.
Likewise, Savan. Moving on to the second guest. This is someone who deserves an introduction, but probably doesn't need one, right? A superstar in the whole making, Mr. Perry Goes. Perry, in his previous capacity, was the Chief Strategy Officer at United Breweries Limited, currently sort of giving back to the community, a consultant and an advisors for MSMEs across the country. Perry is someone who spearheaded the whole business transformation that happened at your United Breweries a few years ago. He was very instrumental in formulating this whole strategy wherein you strengthen relationships with your retailers, with your distributors across multiple different challenges. And Perry and his team have helped UBL to rise to the ranks of a market leader, even in a very competitive environment like that of Alcobev. Perry, very thank you for joining into today's session. We really look forward to your insights and analytics.
Thank you, Varun. Quite excited to be part of this discussion.
Likewise, Perry, very excited to have you as well. And last but not the least, someone I personally consider a mentor, someone I've had the experience and the privilege of working closely in the very recent past, Mr. Dharmendra Singh, who in his last capacity in the FMCG industry was VP Sales at Parle Agro. With over 35 years of experience in core FMCG industry, I affectionately call him DS. So don't mind that, but know that if I'm referring to DS, it's Dharmendra Singh. Dharmendra was very, very instrumental in driving deep market penetration for some of the most household brands out there, right? The Fruities of the world, the Appy Fizz of the world, the Smooths of the world. Dharmendra was responsible for building a very robust infrastructure for wider and deeper market penetration, not in the urban market, but also in the rural market alike, in very, very competitive environments like the dairy and the beverage industry. Thank you so much, DS, for joining in. It is an absolute pleasure to host you today on the discussion.
Good morning to everyone, and thank you for this inviting me on this discussion. Thanks a lot.
It's all our pleasure, DS. Thank you so much. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is your panel for today. If you were here in person, I would say give them a round of applause. But I'm sure you're doing that in the head already. We really hope that you enjoy this conversation, number one, and are able to take away a lot of key insights from this whole discussion. Because not very often do you have access to such industry stalwarts in the space, right? So now that we have the guests joined into the discussion, let me just spend a minute in dissecting the topic that we have at hand today and talk to you a little bit about what this approach is. Bizom folks have talked a lot about this approach, but what is it largely? So the topic at hand today is from the shelf space of your supermarkets to dominating the market as a consumer brand. How do you go about this whole go wide, go deep approach? So let me dissect it in a very, very simple and quick fashion, right? In today's day and age, you can't just be a very monotonous person, even if you are necessarily very good at that, right? It is very important for you to excel at one, but also be equally exemplary at other fields. Now, taking the whole FMCG approach to this, go wide was something that industries did for a very long time, right? Reaching, expanding into new regions, into new markets, onboarding different customers, that is distributors, retailers, expanding into new regions. This whole increasing distributional coverage. I remember, at one point, Unilever were very keen on the idea of how many pin codes are they able to reach out to. This was something how the FMCG industry largely believed was the way to grow. But today, unfortunately, we realize that that is not the only mantra out there. There is a need to be a little bit more of a T-like structure, where not only are you sort of broad in horizons, but you're also fairly deep in your capabilities. And that's where your whole go deep approach comes in. Go deep is how do you strengthen relationships with your current distributors, your current retailers, deepen market penetration in the markets that you're currently working in, and largely, I would say, increasing drop size at each outlet, at each distribution level. Today's discussion is about how do we sort of leverage this whole approach or this mantra to success in the market and go about market expansion, market penetration, which eventually, hopefully, leads you to dominating the industry like some of our customers do. With that, I'd like to open the round for my first question to you, Perry. Perry, I am an ASM. Let's sort of build a narrative here, right? I am the ASM of this FMCG company. Now, these Bizon folks are telling me there is a need to go wide and go deep. But how should I be picking my focus? Should I be going wide, that is expanding my reach, expanding my horizon, or should I be going deep, wherein I sort of build stronger relationships with my current customers? And how do I sort of build a balance between the two?
Varun, interesting question. The way one should look at it is, to begin with, it's not Bizom going to tell you that you should go wide, go deep. I think it will be a business imperative for growth that makes people look for width and depth, right? So at the end of the day, every business is striving for growth. Now, how do you get growth? There is the traditional or rather the easy way of going to the same customer and trying to sell more to that customer of the same product or the same SKU, etc. But at a certain point in time, you reach a certain saturation level. So the way to go about getting growth is to look at growth opportunities, and those can come in two ways: is to present your products and make them available to consumers at places where they were not available before. So, for example, you can increase width by growing the number of outlets that you are placed in, that you are available in, increasing geography, going to a different geography, finding different what's it, pockets, which could be a combination of outlets in geography. So it can be selective. Growth in depth comes from ensuring that you don't run out of stock when the consumer wants it, because that is one of the biggest problems of being available in a limited way, is that you get depth of quantity. But I think the other important part is to have depth of range of the portfolio. So for example, as a company, you will have a portfolio of brands. Are you available in full range of that portfolio in that particular outlet? Even if that brand is available, are all the SKUs available, because different SKUs have got different purposes, and consumers look for different uses and different consumption moments for different SKUs. So the growth in depth is to ensure that you're available with your portfolio, with your range, and with the full set of your SKUs that are there. Now, how will you go for this growth? One thing is to what we call spray and pray. The other one is to be selective. Now, in today's day and age, when everything is, costly, I mean, costs are becoming a major part of doing business, and profit margins are becoming thinner and thinner. It's not good enough just to keep on expanding outlets of expanding geography, or just putting in more stock in an outlet, but doing it in a mindful, thoughtful manner. And that is where technology, and that is where data, that's where the right kind of information comes into play, and that becomes very important. So in short, if you are an ASM and you want to, you're facing a question of, should I grow in width, should I grow in depth, I would say just have one single mantra that we used to have in UB: sell more, sell in more. There is no or, it is a combination. You have to sell more of what you're selling, you have to sell in more of the outlets that are available to you, and you do that now in a mindful manner of being selective, purposeful, and relevant to that particular product portfolio of yours.
Understood. Very interesting insight. I think it makes great sense that not only are you supposed to look at, reaching out to more outlets, but also maybe things like new product launches can also play a very big role, improving your portfolio to sort of include that. I'm going to take that very interesting point because I want to talk a little bit more detailed about this whole, product launches. And someone here with us, DS, at his capacity at Parley Agro, was someone who was very instrumental in launching multiple household brands like, Fruity, Appy Fizz, and all of that. So, DS, my question to you is obviously increase in portfolio of products available plays a substantial role in you being able to deepen your horizons, right? How do you ensure this opportunity actually sort of gives that impact, that you're able to widen and deepen your market penetration that is already happening?
For this, I'll take a slightly theoretical thing and then I'll come to a practical thing. When you are a very established player or a non-established player, the most important thing for increasing width and depth, or go deeper or go wider, is the infrastructure at place. Because if the infrastructure consists of your plants, CFAs, depots, super stockists, distributors, and then finally retailer to serve the consumers. So this infra plays a very, very important role whenever any manager decides to increase his width and depth. Then comes the role of very important person in the chain, especially in FMCG industries. They are two. That is, one is the distributor and second is the retailer. So at distributor point, the most important thing is that is distributor, in terms of providing service to the retailer, is good or not. When you go for a new product launch, what a retailer looks at, he looks at the company. Then the major thing comes that which company is coming, and the major thing comes in terms of that who is a distributor and who is selling to him. That is a salesman role. If he has a good relationship with the retailer and he is going with the new product, the chances are that he will be very, very successful. May not be successful with the higher quantities, at some level with the relationship a very higher quantity also, but the important factor is the distributor relationship, in terms of that how he is servicing, how he is offering a credit, and then how he is parting the other services to a retailer. These are very important things in launching the product and then increasing the depth. For example, a new company comes and there are lots of objection, but the important point is that if a solid distributors they have put in place for their product to service into the market, 50% of the job is done in terms of initial stages. Distributor is like a propeller which gives a thrust to the whole system, especially in a set of beats or in a set of market or in a particular town. So this distributor, the initial thrust which is required is very much possible with the good network of the distributor. Then comes the salesman role in terms of putting the quantities and how it is going to be placed in the outlet. For example, any product is launched and it is not on the shelf, though I am saying a very basic thing, but these are very crucial thing in terms of, especially it is something like that, a new baby has come, and if is not anybody is taking care of that, the chances are the baby will not grow well. So similar applies to the product. If some company launched a product and the manager down there is taking full care of the product in terms of after putting it into the retailer, is it on the shelf, is it visible to the retailer? These are the most important things after that. And then the third important thing comes, that after that the role of the tertiary comes into the place. If the tertiary is come, then there is no problem in expanding the outlets or increasing the volume in the same outlet. For example, I'll give you, I am not going to take the name, but in terms of a generic category, a flavored milk which is launched differently recently, close to 2.5 years ago in Indian market, and it is from a beverage company. Because of the robust system of the distributors and retailers in place, what happened that in 90 days time, they have reached to 8 lakh outlets, which itself is a big achievement in terms of a new product category. And after that, when in terms of the BTL or the ATL or BTL activity started, the product was available to a consumer in terms of that, yes, this is coming where it is available. So why 8 lakh outlets in 90 days was possible? Because 6,500 distributors were available to cater, and a large force of greater than 3,000 people were on the road to cater to those retailers. And most importantly, after that, the display of that product, which ensured the tertiary of those products. So the basic thing is three things: the infra, distributor, display, availability, and then finally it depends on the product attributes or in terms of a tertiary sales. Then the next phase comes in terms of how you are going to utilize the digitization, or we simply know as SFA in most of the FMCG companies, that how you are using the power of SFA in terms of that what is the total universe, where you have reached, in which town you have reached, which outlets you have missed. So all data, because of that SFA, today is as a click of a button, which is available to managers. So these are the key pointers in terms of increasing width and depth for a new product, whatever category we put in FMCG space.
Brilliant, yes, sir. Brilliant, yes, sir. I think you very, very well encapsulated the whole journey that's involved in sort of bringing a new brand, a new product line. And in my head, I know everyone else is doing it as well, but in my head, I'm obviously guessing which is this brand that you're talking about, which is the chocolate brand. But I'm sure my guess is as good as anybody else's, right? Lalit Verma says, bang on, yes, sir. The face value of a distributor or a salesman in front of the retailer is key for product launches. Specifically, placement and availability and visibility play a very key role. I think that's very, very truly said, Lalit. And that's how DS sir rolls. You know, what he says is essentially FMCG Bible, so to speak, right? Now, I'd like to bring in Savant to this discussion. Savant, in my introduction, I said you were part of this whole digitization journey at VIP, wherein you optimize your distributional spend. not just in the urban landscape, but very importantly and crucially in the rural landscape as well. Can you walk us through what was the process like? What did you do, and how did you go about that whole process?
Yeah, sure, Varun. But before, I would like to give you one live example of what Mr. Perry said in terms of go deep and go wide. Let me give you one practical example of in terms of business and IT merit, how we have merit that. So in VIP industries, for going deep, what we did was like we segmented our retailers. We targeted certain product we called focus product or certain focus product and targeted those customers where they were in the same category of customer or retail outlet, but they were not buying those products. So we ensure that through system, my salesperson sell those or push those focus products on the outlets which have been targeted. So that's one of the aspect where we use the in terms of going deep and in terms of go wide. You must have seen furniture stores across India who sells more predominantly when there is a marriage functions or marriages happens, right? So we spoke to them and we put them as a category called seasonal outlet where we approach them to have a combo offer of luggages along with your any furnitures which marriage parties do. So that's one of the example of going wide in terms of, and that's where we also targeted that in terms of your route. When the salespersons are going to in the route, the seasonal outlets should be according so that only those 3 months or 4 months the outlet will be available and they will approach to those outlets. Other than that, it's normal business they have to do in the regular outlet. That's I would like to add what Mr. Perry said. Now coming to your questions in terms of rural market and urban market and how the technology you can leverage in terms of optimize the distribution cost. Before getting into that, let's understand rural and urban landscape. If I say rural, I'll call it rural Bharat. Rural Bharat has a population of 64% population in comparison to urban Bharat is 34% population. The purchasing power parity of rural Bharat is much more higher than the urban Bharat. And if I talk about the in the if I despite of the demography as well as the purchasing power parity, uh, the rural Bharat contribute around 45% of the sales to the FMCG sector, right? So and companies incurred around 35 to 40% more cost in terms of serving the rural Bharat due to logistical challenges, due to dispersed population. Rural and rural Bharat offers a huge potential with high cost to serve. So, what are the technologies that plays a pivotal role in terms of optimizing the overall distribution cost in rural Bharat? What kind of technological uh, tools can be used for the rural Bharat as well as urban Bharat? I will not say that it will be a rural Bharat technology, but what are the tools which we are using and I have also implemented in my current as well as my previous organization? What kind of technology we can use? If I talk about my first and foremost in terms of reaching out to the right customer, reaching to the customer, how better way you can reach to the customer. So I'll say dynamic route optimization tool where with a cost effective way you can reach out to the customer in terms of both in case of pre-sale as well as when sale method, whether you are taking the order in the beginning and delivering it or you are sending the van directly to sell it and returning back. So in both the cases the route optimization tool, one of the tool which we have used predominantly very effectively. Again, mobile application, whether SFA or DMS or in a combination of DMS and SFA, plays a key role in optimizing the distribution cost in terms of the field force have the mobile application, then they can use the features like suggested order, focus SKU, mustard SKU to leverage the technology. The image recognition tool to validate trade promotion in the market, the retailer application to optimize order taking, scheme communication, and targeted trade promotion. Right now, if I talk about the Corona period, your retailer application play a pivotal role, and the acceptance level of retailer application has increased manyfold during the Corona. Post-pandemic scenario also, as the usage of the retailer application was very high. Post pandemic, it's continued and people are accepting, irrespective of rural or urban market. By this, you are able to reduce the cost of reaching out to the customer in terms of they are placing the order and you may not require to reach out to the customer each time. You may not be, need to travel to the customer, then call through the application to the retail outlet to get repeated orders. Like if I have a visit plan of say twice in a week, I can make one time visit plan as a physical visit plan and one time as a telephonic conversation or order through a retailer app. In a combination of both, one organization can save the cost in terms of visiting to or reaching out to a customer. Better fleet management by vehicle tracking or by the performance analysis, whether my vehicle is traveling in the right route or not, whether my vehicles are as per the designated path, whether they are reaching out to the customer at time or not, and whether they are spending justified time at the outlet or not. One of the tracking that organization can use. Tertiary application to reach out to the rural customer is very important. You have a better data visibility of your tertiary customer, how the tertiary customers are behaving, what kind of products they are buying, what are the buying pattern. You can very well track through the tertiary applications. Your warehouse automation and can ensure better inventory management. And if you have a sales forecasting or supply planning tool which will ensure that you are never getting out of your no stock situation, and you can forecast the future demand very well. So these are the very common tools which been used by almost all organizations, not only in FMCG in rural market, but as well as in urban market, to standardize their business processes and get the optimized cost in distribution. If I talk about Agent together, one aspect of these tools are in terms of implementing them and making them huge, or putting them into the place. But the second aspect is how to leverage the business benefit out of it. So each tool has to have a value proposition through which you can get the best value out of which. So in both the aspect, these tools are playing a crucial role in optimizing the distribution cost. At the end, I would like to say a sentence like all companies follow standards playbook for urban market, but company which plays a better leverage technology better in rural market becomes a market leader. So that's that's the way to go for.
Very, very well captured, Savan. I think something that I really enjoyed about your answer, and this is a part of my belief system based on how much I've sort of seen the market. Your go wide and go deep would largely be approaches, whereas one of the pillars of that whole approach is your Salesforce effectiveness, right? Making sure you're able to extract the absolute best out of your Salesforce is one of those pillars, and to leverage technology for that. I think very well encapsulated answer, Savan. I think this is the advantage of having techno biz folks in the discussion. They'll give you a complete masterclass on not only how are you going to go with the approach, but also about how do you do it from a technologic standpoint, right? So that's a very, very interesting insight. Folks, just one small update. Do sort of send in. I see that there are a lot of questions here. Do sort of send in your questions. Note that we will take them all up when we get to our question answer session. So be rest assured that we will be getting to them. So now that we're on this whole rural landscape, right? Why don't we go deep into this rural landscape discussion, right? I want to bring DS into the discussion. I think Savan shared some very, very interesting, data points. About 65% of the country's population, falls under the rural market, whereas about 35 in the urban. But unfortunately, if you see, cost to serve in rural is substantially higher, probably about 30% higher than your urban market, because of logistical challenges, because of how the population itself is so fragmented in these rural markets, right? That perhaps is one of the reasons why we haven't yet sort of figured out the rural market, and yet it is such a big growth opportunity. So, how do you sort of, in your view, based on how you've seen the market, how do you expand and deepen your presence in this rural market despite this challenge of having high cost to serve?
Okay. This is question addressed to me.
Yes, yes, yeah, to
Okay.
you.
this high servicing cost would remain be a chicken and egg story for various companies. For example, a bigger company like HUL, once upon a time, close to 20 years, this was a problem, but not that extent as on date. So I'll give you later on the example of that also. But in terms of to a mid-sized company or a smaller company, this is the biggest issue in terms of that how to reach to rural areas and increase the first width and then the depth. This is the topic on which we are. For example, the best thing which has happened in the last close to 5 years ago was by the government of India in terms of GST implementation. Now, GST implementation was a big boost in terms of controlling the cost and reaching to the rural faster. How? The example is, if you know the geography of southern India between Tamil Nadu and Kerala, there is a one point on the tip of Kerala border, that is Palakkad, and a bigger town in Tamil Nadu, there's Coimbatore. So earlier company used to have two different depots because of the sale tax or VAT, to have a different C&F in both the places, or a stock point or whatever we call it, to keep it. That was a necessity because of the taxation rules. But today, because of GST, either company can keep a one depot, godown, or whatever we call it, in terms of a super stockist, that he can send the stock to Palakkad, and if some company finds it better in terms of putting a CFA, super stockist, or a stock point in Palakkad, then they can come easily to Coimbatore. So GST, which we today must have forgotten, but at that point of time when the GST came into, this was a big relief, especially for FMCG companies, in terms of having a multiple stock points, and that was adding to the cost. Next, come on a practical side, I'll take you, or some of you must be knowing about it, one example about the milk distribution, which is a very complex kind of a distribution, but in terms of a cost, because of the volumes, it becomes a very, very costly proposition for any company. So in the yesteryears, or currently, that thing has been mastered by most of the company, is that earlier stocks get produced, means the milk pouches got produced at a plant, then it is transported to various areas, either city or in a rural. But rural expansion was always a constraint, or within the city the distribution cost was very, very high in terms of a first leg transportation. So what the milk companies does, or they experimented one thing, that they made the distributor itself is a transporter. Means he will transport his goods, take the stocks from the plant, and directly distribute to the godown. So there was no depot, no handling of the stocks, and directly from plant it goes to the retailer, and then a substantial cost saving. The benefit to the distributor was that he was saving time and money, because directly getting the stocks from the plant and delivering it to the retailer is a huge advantage for both the companies and for the distributor as well. So this is one example. Then the another example is of a beverage company, and in the most populous state, which is UP as on date, because we have the highest population, and the journey started in way back in 2006 with a 3 C&F in whole of the state. But today they have 13 CFAs and catering to 1100 distributors, and the 60% of the business comes from rural India, because the rural portion in UP is very, very high, and it was always very challenging that how one can reach to the population town of even 2,000 or 5,000 town. I am not talking about in terms of a 25,000, 50,000, 1 lakh population town, or a 5 lakh population town. I am talking about reaching to a town which is having a 10 outlets and having a population of, say, close to 2,500. That was possible because of the C&FA put in place. The product was in demand. It is that how one can reach to them. So matter comes that if your product has a volume, then your costing in terms of a reaching to rural would be always in control. But the problem comes to a mid-sized company whose brands are very not popular, and how they will reach to the rural. For bigger companies, I gave you the example about for HUL or for the other companies, not a problem. But for a mid-sized company, how this is possible? Again, I'll substantiate this with one of the example. A smaller company having a turnover of 400 crore has put in, they have reduced the case size and make it a 30 piece or a 27 piece carton size. So they reduce the value of that carton, which is helpful for a rural customer, rural retailer in terms of a buying capacity. But in terms of a 1 lakh, they are getting close to 500 or 600 cases in one load. So they resolve the problem in terms of reaching to the distributors first and then to the retailer by controlling the cost and not adding the cost but reaching faster. So this helped them in terms of expanding their distribution very fast and reaching to the rural. And today they are very successful with this model. Now, the another example could be that another company which is there in terms of a mid-sized company, but they have a problem that they can't afford to have that many lavish infrastructure in terms of CFA or the stock points or that matter. Then the alternate is in terms of appointing a super stockist. If not a super stockist, then through a master depot or through a bigger depot. Then the trick is for that mid-sized company is to appoint a C&F who is already having a CFA of various other companies, so that a smaller load could be possible to reach to the rural India, and then the product could be available in those areas. So 3 examples I have given in terms of. Then the another thing is that companies are using in terms of hub and spoke, super stockist model. These are all in place as per the company's strength and then how fast they want to reach, and by keeping the cost in control, that is the major thing. And most of the companies face a huge problem in terms of not reaching because the load is not there, how the stocks could go. So these are the few live examples which I have shared with you in terms of reaching faster to the rural and make your brand available, popular, and get a growth or regular sales.
Very well
And
encapsulated.
another thing, let me
Yes, please
add
go.
one more point. For example, you must have observed that either biscuits, namkeen, detergent, that companies have a co-packer with them. So these days, it is not possible to set up all plants and reach to a wider thing. For example, in a Surf Excel, you will find there are 7 factories which are there, or in a Britannia packet, you will find 5 factories in different part, and then you see for batch number, you refer this and you will come to know from where it has come, which is the manufacturing unit. So from the plant directly to the distributor, that is the another way of reaching faster to the rural India.
Perfect. Brilliant, dear sir. I think dear sir, over his experience of the amount of years that DS has spent in the industry, he has so much information that in his head he also needs to think that it's only a 1 hour session. Itna hi bol sakte hai. So that's a very good understanding, and I think very well encapsulated points as well, right? So let me bring Savan back on the discussion. Savan, you're the tech man on the panel today. I want to talk a little bit about the digital infrastructure today, because today's India is very different from, say, 20 years back, right? Today, we're looking at about 1.2 billion mobile phone users. Half of that, perhaps a little bit more than half of that, are smartphone users with great tech, right? That's about 700 million. 61% of the country's population has access to clean quality of internet. And in the rural markets alone, right, something that FMCG spaces are so very keenly looking at, there is a 31% year on year increment in the number of internet users just over the last 2 years, right? Given this type of unprecedented digital infrastructure adoption, both in terms of your handheld device, your hard device, as well as the the technology. How big a role do you see tech playing going forward in how business operates and how a consumer brand does consumer engagement, largely in the rural market?
Sure, Varun. You have the whatever the statistics you have given. What I am able to recall is my 2G times when the 2G networks were there, and how we were able to operate the technology in the market when we were implementing DMS and SFA in the rural market or the urban market when 2G was there. So I was just getting into that. Anyhow, the current scenario is we all are in the 5G, and rural market has a higher penetration in terms of internet usage in comparison to any part of world. Means the substantial amount of uh, in your internet penetration in rural market is very high. If I talk about the technology in terms of how company are adopting to the technology and getting into the rural market, if I say, see, earlier the challenge was how I'll get a data connection or how I'll get the information from the rural market, how I'll reach out to the rural market. Will my GPS will work? Will my system will work? Whether should I work in a 2G technology or SMS technology, or should I move on to the latest like 5G, and the data interchange can happen? Would the syncing process will happen immediately or after 2 days? Those are the gone days. Right now, each organizations are leveraging different tools because the technology or the infrastructure is been set up in the rural market. The connectivity is good, barring Jammu Kashmir and certain part of Northeast where my team members are facing challenge. Barring few areas across India, we are not facing a single point of challenge in terms of whether my team member Salesforce reach to a current location or not, whether he is in the right location or not, whether my goods are in the reaching to the right location in on time or not. All the analysis are we are doing it on the go. Getting a secondary sales was like T plus one or T plus two kind of activities earlier. Right now, we are getting it in immediately. So the moment my salesperson are taking a order, I'm getting the information what kind of secondary order is been generated and what kind of delivery is happening in the market. Whether my salesperson is able to do a sales as per the target or whether he is lacking. It's not a post-mortem analysis, it's the on-the-go analysis in terms of now and immediately I'm doing the analysis. My sales team is reviewing their subordinate or peers' performance then and there on the go on the market through the mobile application. Irrespective of whether they are in the rural market or urban market, whether they are whatever the route they are doing, whether they root data, everything is on live right now, and people are doing it seamlessly. If I talk about whether my must-have SKU, which is new launches in the market, new ranges, new product which has came to the market, whether that has been sold to the outlets or not, I'm I'm like able to give the reports with a click of button to my MD and it's all live. There no one is accessing the report because the data is directly coming to from the market to the MD dashboard. So in terms of if I talk about it technologically, the challenge is right now it's more of a adoption and understanding of the application rather than technology. Technology challenge is very minimal right now. And as the mobile usage has increased and people are more prone to the smartphones, the application usage also has increased. So sales team or the trade partners, as they are getting into the smartphone day in day now, the WhatsApp communication or any tools you give it, they give us the feedback that you can do this better way so that we will also get benefited. So if I'm launching a new module into the market and saying that this is a new module and you start using it from tomorrow, within a week we are getting a lot of feedback how to improve that particular module and how to leverage on that module. So as for me, as of now in 2024, I'm not seeing technology at all as a challenge. It's more of a how you are adapting to the technology and how you are leveraging those technologies to getting the business benefit is more important. And companies like my company and I'm sure all companies are much more working on leveraging those technologies and getting the business benefit out of it.
Thank you so much for that, Savant. I think I agree with you. Technology, especially in a country like India, is definitely not going to be a challenge anymore. And I think those numbers speak for themselves, right? And not just about India as well, right? If you look at countries like the Eastern Africa, for example, another market, probably a little bit behind India in comparison, but still, I think the trends are all there to show it is definitely moving towards a digitization. I think infrastructure is taking shape in a very great fashion. So I think very, very fair points made, Saban. Let me take this discussion another way, right? Let's talk a little bit about premiumization. And for that, I want to bring Perry into the conversation. Perry, we're a country where the GDP per capita is about 2,400 US dollars, right? In comparison to something like in America at about 78,000 dollars. If you do the math, that's about 4% of American GDP per capita. And yet, when Coldplay's tickets go on live, in about 30 minutes they get sold out. And I read somewhere that about 1.3 crore people applied, and obviously only a select few got. So a lot of people are obviously going to the grayer markets to buy these tickets at a much higher price. That is somewhat of an indication that disposable income is much higher, right? People are willing to pay for experiences at large. How do you see this whole experience first, premiumization first, take shape in FMCG, right? How is that relevant to the FMCG space, to the industry, where you see premium brands like Lakme's of the world growing by about 35-40% year on year, where the general market is doing about 7 to 8%? What is your view on all of that?
Okay, to begin with, let me take the most interesting part of your question. If you have scored any Coldplay tickets, I'm your good friend. Don't forget that. But having said that, this is something which I think I have always maintained. We look at national GDP, we look at national per capita income and all that. But if you look at the scale of our nation, the size of our nation, we have possibly and been having, not just for decades, but possibly over a century, a sufficient number of very wealthy and affluent individuals which could easily beat the population of many of the European countries. What has happened now is that this affluence is translating into an aspiration or a desire to spend, and that is where the whole experience comes. uh, I think there were sufficient number of Indians who had the affordability but didn't have the desire and didn't display it in terms of consumer sentiment. Today what's happening that even a middle class person, what we used to typically call middle class or lower middle class, is exposed through the entire wave of telecommunication and visual media that comes straight into their hands to the kind of lifestyles that are possible. Two, I think there is a greater propensity to consume than to save as compared to many years ago. So premiumization is going to be there. It's a reality, and that is going to come out of not what I call the GDP numbers, but because of the mental shift, which is the gross experience index that we should be talking about. And it will be there. It's even in those categories where we thought it wouldn't be as market, we are seeing that coming in. Now, what does that mean for FMCG players, and for what does it actually mean on the context that we are speaking about in terms of uh, market leadership, going from shelf space to market leadership through availability? That premium products have to be available at the right place in the right way and presented in the right way. The challenge is because premium products also have a higher inventory cost. Manufacturers or brand owners tend to be a little cautious about not putting in places where it will not move, at the same time ensuring that they don't run out of stock where it moves fast. And that is where the real technology revolution will come in place. You are able to, right from, as someone said, your van sale loading, your route optimization, as DK said, in terms of DS said about the way you will get your quality of coverage and all that, you will have to leverage technology, you will have to leverage data to know which outlets you have to present with what kind of SKU and with what kind of stock quantity. Otherwise, the bigger problem, I mean, is not just for premiumization, the bigger challenge when everybody's talking about, go wide, go deep. I don't think we are thinking and talking as much as necessary for the downsides or the repercussions of doing it the wrong way. If you go and distribute wherever there's a new outlet, or you go and distribute to some new geographies, and the stock doesn't move, you will have various problems, right, from stock aging to stock obsolescence to stock returns to collections, payments, etc. If you talk about going deep also, what's the quality of your service, what's the quality of your feet on street, that makes a difference. And in the premiumization story, while the potential is huge, mindfulness, and I keep on talking about this, the mindfulness on how you do it is as important, rather than just going blindly and saying I've added so many more outlets to my coverage, I've increased the depth of my availability. This is where technology, data, analytics, everything will come in to ensure that you are there in the right place in the right way, where you are able to leverage your opportunities, make the consumer happy by presenting to her or him what is required in the right form and format, and yet ensuring that a retailer doesn't have the burden of carrying excessive inventory, and you have the burden of then trying to figure out what to do with dead stock and obsolete or damaged stocks.
Thank you so much, Perry. I think very well encapsulated points. Great, great way to sort of sum it up, right? Keeping an eye on the clock, I will now sort of move towards the Q&A session, where I'd like to give everyone, the viewers, an opportunity to sort of, fire away your questions at the guests here, and give them that opportunity to answer that. So maybe let's let DS go first. DS, would you like to take this question? Let me sort of read it out for you. How do omni-channel strategies help brands with go wide while offering a deeper and a more personalized consumer experience? Interesting question.
Varun, is DS on
I think
mute?
you are muted.
Yes. Now am I audible?
Yeah.
Perfectly audible, loud and clear.
This channel itself has now diversified within the category. For example, earlier we used to have only one channel in terms of omni channel, that is the retail and modern trade. Now in the modern trade itself, there are channels in terms of modern trade, B2B, B2C, then e-commerce, and the latest quick commerce. So there are five categories within that space which has emerged. So that becomes an omni channel. But the fact of the matter is that it is very, very lucrative to go to the last mile, that is these days a quick commerce. But how to reach to a quick commerce? For example, you go to Amazon and you are a slightly mid-sized company or not a big company. The kind of things they will put for you, it will make your life hell. So coming to the point in terms of a, because the questioner is looking for some solution. So the solution is that how you are going to leverage your strength in terms of your company, your brand, and optimize that how you can make myself available in those omni channel. For example, a quick commerce. I've given one example. I hope that answers the question in terms of a how to address the omni channel. The other thing is in terms of modern trade, it is purely has become a discounting house. But in terms of a new product launch or to make it regular available, because if somebody recall that there was a fight close to a year ago between the channels between a GT channel and a modern trade channel, and distributors and companies were fighting that you are offering this discount to them and why you are not offering that discount. And on a retail level, retailers were asking that if you are giving this discount to a modern trade outlet, then why you are not giving me? So this is a very tricky situation, and the solution is that between 2 to 5% on various product categories, especially in FMCG, if any manager increases, then it is bound to be a problematic for various channels. So the trick is that control a margin. Then in terms of other things, in terms of a relationship, in terms of making it available regularly and doing the servicing to those channels are the solution.
Perfect. Thank you, DS, so much for the answer. Nishta, I hope that really answers your question. Thank you for the interesting question. Moving on to the next question. The big question is, and this is from Lalit Verma, the big question is how do FMCG companies counter this whole online e-commerce, quick commerce business with at such high margins, right? They function at such high margins. Retailers are no longer are very dependent on the distributors and the salesperson service, but online margins are just improving the profitability of the business. So how do they counter this?
Why should they
Perry, you
counter
can
it?
take this up.
Yeah, my question: why should they counter it? If they try to counter it, let me say that they are signing their death wish. If they want to shut down their business fairly quickly, then they should even think about countering it. At the end of the day, what is your business? For an FMCG company, they make products in branded in such a way that it appeals to the final consumer and it lands in the consumer's hands and get consumed. The path to that consumer is shouldn't be the constraint as to how you conduct a business. If there is a reality that there are multiple ways of getting there, then you should equip yourself to be ready for that. uh, Margins, yes, there's always a margin game, but remember, in the long haul, if there is no money to be made, which means that if there are very low margins, that business itself will get choked. So if I were an FMCG player, I wouldn't be so much concerned about margins or the lower, higher margins of certain channels and what the thing. I would just look at, is my product, is my brand reaching the hands of the consumers in a sufficient manner with sufficient attractiveness and creates a sufficient desire that the consumer will continue to ask for it. If you stay out of the different channels, at some point in time, your competitor will be there. They might lose money in the short term. You might make unit profits, which are slightly better, but your overall profits and overall revenue will go down for sure.
Perfect. I think very, very fair point. If you're not sort of leveraging every channel, then it is almost like a loss of sale opportunity, right? If you're not making the best of every channel, then that's an opportunity you have sort of missed. Lalit, hope that answers your question. I think
Just
Lalit
to
is a
add,
very traditionalist in his mind. What?
Varun, just to add, and see, this is where this question would have been a much more powerful or relevant question said 20 years ago. The beauty of data technology connectivity, it allows you to deal with micro realities. You can actually compute micro profits. You can compute transaction level profits. You can monitor it almost on real time basis. And that is where you can't be the mindset saying, I will produce stock for 3 months, push it into a CNF or a warehouse, and I'll sit tight and wait for it to move. You need to do this dynamically. You have to be on the top of your game every single day. And that is where technology, connectivity, data, analytics, everything comes together. And that is what you have to leverage. And that is why technology solutions are to be looked at very, very seriously. It is no longer a luxury, it is a basic necessity.
Exactly.
Perfect. Understood. Thank you, Perry. I think that answers the question for Lalit. Let's go ahead with maybe the last couple of questions. Savan, maybe you can take this up. How to manage your cost to serve versus revenue in the urban area, requiring very high frequent, customer visits, but comparatively lower purchase power, in comparison.
Let me give you live example of this what we have did in my one of my earlier experience. So in my earlier, it was a beverage organization. Let me name the company also, Coca-Cola. So we have segmented the outlet into platinum, gold, your silver and bronze. And the visit in terms of urban market, the visit you have to have 3 to 4 times visit in a week for a platinum outlet and 3 times for a gold and subsequently 2 times silver and 1 time bronze. That kind of visiting was there. So each time a salesperson has to visit a platinum outlet has to spend 20 to 25 minutes of his time for the day in the platinum outlet. To reduce that and to reduce the time spent as well as the frequency of visit, what we have done is we put up a call center where 2 visit will be done by the salesperson where he is visiting to the stores, cleaning up the SGA, which is your Coca-Cola fridge there, and in terms of talking to the customer, taking a stock of the outlet, whatever they are, and rest of the 2 times or 1 times the call goes from the call center to the retail outlet in terms of taking the order. That's one. Two, in Imami, what we have done is similar thing, but instead of putting a call center and taking the order through call center, what we have done is retailer application, where we teach the consumer that if you buying certain products through the retailer app, you are getting additional benefit in terms of discount or customer loyalty point. By doing that, what we were able to do is in terms of my team member is spending more time in terms of talking to a new outlet or searching for new outlet or getting into the different markets more, and the frequency of visiting to the existing customer has reduced in the urban market, as well as the consumer is getting a benefit in terms of like he is getting a loyalty point which he can leverage in a different way. And the cost to the company in term, if I compare the cost in terms of a person going to a retail outlet versus the loyalty point benefit that for which the company is to give to the retail outlet is very less. So it's more of a win-win situation for both organization as well as the retail outlet, and the cost were pretty down in terms of not reaching out to them each and every time. It's more of a both the way we have leverage in two of my earlier experiences. I hope that will
Perfect.
answer the questions.
I'm sure it has. Thank you, Savan, for very well encapsulating that question. I think with this, we come to the end of today's session. I see a lot of questions pouring in as well. Unfortunately, there is a time limit for everything. And I'm as heartbroken as every other audience is the fact that we've only had a 1 hour with these very learned gentlemen to learn how the market works. Hopefully, we can have more of these sessions. But thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining in, Perry, DS, and Savan. I think your insight has been extremely sort of well nuanced, and I think it will help in contribution to everyone's space here. I saw a lot of students join in from business school, so I'm sure it's going to help for them as well. Some of the very key points that I think each of you highlighted that I'd like to end on that note. Perry, I think you highlighted the importance of exploring market opportunities and maintaining stock depth. I thought that was a very, very interesting point, something that needs to be sort of dealt in very detail. DS, your whole thought process around emphasizing, the important role that infrastructure plays, and something as nuanced as the benefit of the GST relief, right? You spoke about the whole Palakkad CNF situation because of the GST situation. I think that sort of shows how important it is for you to plan your infrastructure in such a way. And Savan, the whole idea of the significance of which the rural market is and how you leverage automation, to keep track of your sales force, to make sure that, the overarching idea is you have sustained growth. That I think was a very, very well sort of noted point. So that insights, all of these insights have been very invaluable in the way that I have taken. You can't tell, but I'm actually making notes on my laptop. So while moderating the session, I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity of this thing. So I was actually making notes on the laptop. So any of you business school folks out here, if you want the notes, please let me know. But that is it. And I think we come to the end of the session. Just a small note before we end. If you thought, the theoretical aspect of this was very interesting and you'd like to know what is it in terms of, the business implication, what is it in terms of an IT implication, you'd like to see it in the way that it works in the ground level. Bizom has, clearly crafted and tailor-made a demo session for you, where we'll sort of walk you through products that can help you go wide and deep in the whole FMCG RTM space. Do sort of join in for that discussion. I think you can see the link there. It will be posted on your comment session, so do sort of join in. With that, we come to the end of the session. Thank you so much, everyone, again for joining in. This has been a privilege for me to host all of you, and I look forward to a next opportunity to host such gentlemen on a conversation and take things forward from that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.